We will get started with the State Board of Education meeting, and we will start with roll call. Brenda, will you please call the roll?
Glenn Flint.
Here.
Lily Larson.
Present.
Patrick McPherson.
Present.
Maureen Nichols.
Here.
Molly O'Halloran.
Present.
Patricia Tim.
Yes.
Rachel Wise.
Here.
John Witzel.
Here.
Commissioner Bloomstead.
Present.
Thank you. Will you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Information regarding the Open Meetings Act is posted on the east wall of this room on the south side of the door. Live web streaming will be available through the State Board of Education website, www.education.ne.gov/stateboard. Board members, please remember to engage your microphones before speaking and turn them off when you're finished speaking. And please turn off personal cell phones. Thank you. We'll now move to the approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the August 4th, 5th, 2016 meetings?
Second.
So we have a motion by Glenn and a second by John. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none. Brenda, please call the roll.
Lily Larson.
Yes.
Patrick McPherson.
Yes.
Maureen Nichols.
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
Patricia Tim.
Yes.
Rachel Wise.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Glenn Flint.
Yes.
All yes.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move on to item 3, which is approval of the agenda. Commissioner, are there any recommended changes for today's agenda?
I don't believe we had any submitted, so I think we're good to go.
All right. Is there a motion to approve today's agenda?
So move.
Second.
So we have a motion by Pat McPherson and a second by Lily Larson. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Brenda, please call the roll.
Patrick McPherson.
Yes.
Maureen Nichols.
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
Patricia Tim.
Yes.
Rachel Wise.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Glenn Flint.
Yes.
Lily Larson.
Yes.
All yes.
All right. Thank you. We will now have our public comment period. I want to thank the members of the public who are in attendance today. We are going to start with our general public comment and then move to the special request for 10 minutes. So first, we've got 2 people who have signed in for our public comment period. First is Laura McCormick. Good morning. Laura, you will have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name's Laura McCormick. Good morning, State Board of Education members. Thank you for your hard work on behalf of Nebraska children. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today. As a longtime resident of Nebraska, I've been an ardent supporter of the public schools. Over the past 20 years, I volunteered in every school my children attended, and I want to express my support for teachers throughout the state. I owe much of who I am to the many Nebraska teachers who touched my life in our public schools and our state-funded collegiate system. Thank you to those dedicated to improving the lives of Nebraska children. As some of you may know, I work to organize groups of volunteers to observe in our juvenile courts. It is via this work that I follow the activities of the Omaha Public Schools. The reason I am here to speak to you today is to sound an alarm bell regarding the use of public-private partnerships in public education. I recently learned of the work related to 2 out-of-state vendors within Omaha Public Schools. These vendors have a contractual relationship with the funding philanthropic donor, but appear to have no contract with the Omaha Public Schools. Both vendors work to implement Omaha Public School educational strategy, and one vendor in particular is responsible for surveying staff, parents, and children. I recently learned of these activities as a result of various meetings I attend, as well as public records requests made on behalf of my organization, the Nebraska Sunshine Project. The data collected, analyzed, and evaluated by these vendors appears to be owned by the funding philanthropic donor. and documents I recently obtained via public records request appear to indicate that the donor retains the right to use information collected within the schools for promotional purposes. The donor also appears to retain copyright and intellectual property rights associated with this work. I am uncertain as to whether the OPS board endorsed this relationship, but at least one board member has requested OPS legal staff research the matter and obtain a legal opinion. Recently, news reports in both the Lincoln Journal-Star and the Omaha World-Herald indicate the State Board of Education selected 3 priority schools as part of a new accountability system. One of the schools selected is Druid Hill Elementary, which is an OPS elementary school. The school improvement plan for Druid Hill Elementary includes references to at least one of the vendors I've mentioned in my testimony. It is not yet clear to me the extent to which parents and children may have been surveyed at Druid Hill, but I can state with certainty that parents and staff at other OPS schools have been interviewed and data has been collected by the vendor affiliated with the philanthropic donor. I do not know the extent to which this information has been used for promotional purposes or if the material developed as part of OPS's educational strategy has been used in other jurisdictions as a result of the foundation retaining copyright and intellectual property rights. I believe the lack of transparency regarding public-private partnerships in public education should concern each of us, and I am hopeful that my comments today will spur additional conversation about this very important issue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. McCormick. Thank you for being here this morning. Next, we'll move on to Rachel Pinkerton. Good morning, Mrs. Pinkerton. We're having a little clock trouble, so we're trying for 5 minutes. Like our usual process is 5 minutes.
Brenda, I can. Oh.
Okay, all right.
I'll give it 1 minute too.
Oh, okay.
Rachel's pretty good at that.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you all this morning, and I want you to think back to the days when you were youngsters and your parents were teaching you about standards of behavior. You all turned out pretty well, so you're probably able to look back, as I am, at parents who did a decent job of letting you know what standards of behavior were acceptable, and when peer pressure became an issue, they probably addressed you with some version of, well, if the other kids were jumping off the cliff, would you do that too? I want to suggest, sadly, you've kind of jumped off a cliff when you sent Julene Hill to OPS to work with OPS on instituting what she had learned when you sent her to Colorado to Planned Parenthood comprehensive sexuality education training. And I don't know if you're aware, this came out in the Catholic Voice yesterday in Omaha, in that archdiocese, thanks to a lot of hard work by some individuals that you have heard from before, Nebraskans for Founders' Values. And the Deacon Timothy McNeil, who is second to George Lucas in the archdiocese, has published this article, Catholic Parents Are Turning Their Backs on the Omaha Public Schools' New Sex Ed Curriculum, and giving instructions on how parents can opt their kids out. Now, again, think back to being a young teenager, specifically an 8th grader, sitting in a co-ed classroom And imagine being asked the question, when do you think someone is ready for sex, either oral, vaginal, or anal, with their partner? Or think about being a 10th grader, again, in a co-ed classroom, and being asked to consider, am I comfortable being vulnerable in front of my partner, for example, being naked with them? And the implication, if I'm sitting in my desk as a 10th grader and I have an authority figure asking me that question, I'm thinking, okay, I'm supposed to have a partner. And if I'm not comfortable being naked with that person, is there something wrong with that? This is very misguided. And if you want to ask, where did this come from and who are those kids that are influencing this that, you maybe shouldn't be jumping off the cliff with, it's the teachers union. I'm sorry, we've looked at this, both the promiscuity and the gender confusion, all of this stuff, it's being driven by, there are half a dozen new business items from the Orlando NEA convention in the summer of 2015, half a dozen new business items pushing transgenderism. And I'll leave it with that. You may have heard, I hope you have heard of Dr. Paul McHugh. He was 40 years University Distinguished Service Professor, thank you, of psychiatry at Johns Hopkins, where they pioneered the gender reassignment surgery and then stopped doing that because ultimately they concluded that was really not the path to go down. And he has some pretty readable, understandable, common sense, and I think very wise words to say on that topic. So those are things that I've encountered that if I were you, I would want brought to my attention. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Pinkerton. Okay, we have no other requests for our traditional public comment period, so we'll move on to our special request. Dr. Edward Trumper has requested and has been granted a special appearance to comment. Dr. Trumper, you'll have 10 minutes.
Can I have the 10 minutes start when the handouts have been
Sure.
Just ask that you don't open the packets, correct?
Not until I ask you to.
Okay.
While we're waiting, can y'all hear me? Okay. While we're waiting for the packets to pass out, I'm Dr. Ed Trumper. I'm a pediatrician in Omaha. And last May 6th, you voted unanimously for me to be on your commission for teacher preparedness, and I thank you for that. And I look forward to serving with y'all in that capacity and being a dutiful voting member and making sure there's complete transparency between that organization and y'all.
So you have 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The packet I have in front of you today is an illustration of why I'm so passionate about education. I would like to describe to you the case that I encountered, and I'm going to call the child Timothy. So if there is 30 sheets, 28 sheets, and I'll walk you through this, and you'll understand at the end why I chose this method rather than a PowerPoint. So if you open number 1, you see a youngster entering his first day of school. And that looks pretty much like any child that is trying to go to school. He has no preconceptions, he or she has no preconceptions. In fact, had a wonderful kindergarten experience and was actually described by his teachers as a gifted child. So his expectations going into school as his parents is that he's going to have a positive school experience and be productive. So let's go to number 2. So he's entering the school, and this is his standard classroom. Now, Timothy's last name is Varghese, which is V and is at the end of the alphabet. And the teacher, in order to learn her 28 students, alphabetizes them and puts them from A at the very front to Z at the very back. And being V, this child is placed at the back of the classroom. Now, the classroom in and of itself looks decently spread. The teacher is clearly easily seen, but then I challenge looking at this where's the teacher's focus most of the time during this operation of an educational day? So let's go to number 3. And number 3 is, this is the child's first goal, to learn the ABCs, both capitalized and non-capitalized. Easy enough. It's something that every school makes as part of its mantra during the first few weeks of the school system, using a variety of different methods. But however, let's say that's on the board and you go to number 4, and this is how this student actually sees those images. This is a visual acuity of somebody with a 20/80 visual, which will not be picked up by parents because they're able to process quite well images, but not numbers and not looking at letters or reading, for that matter. So this is your visual acuity. How well do you think you'll process this looking at a book or even looking at what the teacher writes on a board? Let's move to number 5. Now let's top that off. And that is actually what you process. This is what you see. Does this look like a foreign language? I would say so. And can you explain to your teacher what you are actually seeing? Ask yourself, as a 6-year-old, can you tell the teacher what you don't know, how to explain what you don't know? Now move to item 6. This is what the teacher writes on the board. Now, you've not learned the alphabet, and now we've moved to words, and you are hideously behind. And these are 5 statements that were written on the board to teach sentence structure. And this is what the teacher wrote on the board that you are to copy. Go to number 7, and this is what you saw on the chalkboard. And that's what you copied. Go to number 8. What if you couldn't hear very well? And this is the problem that you're experiencing. You have bilateral serous media because you've had serial ear infections because your parents smoke. And you can't hear, and you can't process, and you can't read. You can't understand. Now move to number 9. This is the first reader that they give you. You can't read, you can't understand, yet you are forced to look at this book for the next 6 months. You don't get to proceed until you're proficient with this book. This might as well be in a foreign language. And I would challenge anyone here to have the stamina to sit here and look at a book that you cannot promise, that you can't process for 6 months. And that leads to the next issue, which is, if you're forced to look at a book and spend all day not understanding anything, what do you think is going to happen to your attention span? And as it turns out, because you don't seem to be doing well in school, instead of evaluating you, they decide to stick you in the back of the class because the good students get put to the front of the class. So do you feel isolated? Do you feel abandoned? And I would challenge anyone at the age of 6 not to feel so. Now, because the teacher has remonstrated you day after day for months about the fact that you've not been able to learn, you're then confronted by your students, your fellow colleagues, and you're taunted for being a dunce and even being bullied. Now you've reached from August 27th to May 16th, at which time, with all the other students, you've been given a standardized IQ test, and you can't understand the letters or the numbers. So let's get to the final result. Number 14. You score a 78 on that test. You have just confirmed to the teacher that you are incapable of learning, and that teacher tells your parents that this young man needs to go to a different school, that he's incapable of learning. Now, as parents, one is a PhD in chemistry and the other is a nurse, is flabbergasted because this has never been something other than been presented to them other than the fact that this boy needs to just try harder. He's not paying attention in class. He's not getting the message. So how do you think you would react if you're told day after day you can't learn? And how do you think your fellow students are, the people that you call your friends, react? So what happened to this little boy? This little boy grew up in a small town, not many resources, only one pediatrician, and the educational system basically wrote him off. So they took him to his pediatrician and said, help us. And the pediatrician, who'd been practicing for more than 40 years, had no educational experience, but he knew there was a problem. And he spent a 2-hour session watching this little boy, examined him, found his ear issue, found his eye issue, sent him to an ophthalmologist who got him glasses, sent him to get an ENT who then put the first ear tubes that were ever put in a child in the state of Texas. And now he can hear, and now he can see. He then finds a methodology for teaching this young boy how to learn. And it is based on teaching. At the time, the issue of dyslexia was something that was not even taught in the schools. He finds a teaching methodology that had worked well and was actually provided by the state of Texas for free. It would have required $35 worth of mimeographing at the time. The school said, no, we have an excellent way of teaching students, it has worked, and we're going to double down on this. And that pediatrician travels all the way to the State Board of Education and said he will file a lawsuit against the school district. Now I would ask you, where would you ever find somebody who would stand up for you like that under these circumstances? So what's the lessons learned from this? After that, the school crumbled, taught him that method, and was at reading grade level by the time of the 2nd grade. By the time he finished 4th grade, he was at 8th grade level. By the time he finished high school, he had finished most of 20 volumes of the World Book Encyclopedia, became a doctor, became an educator, is now a major medical researcher, and now actually publishes textbooks on brain biology. And now teaches at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, Creighton University, and NMC, and has taught hundreds of medical professionals, and now is sitting in front of you today as your newly minted representative on teacher preparedness. What is the lessons learned? I told you that I was going to talk about ADHD, talk to you about hearing and visual deficits, and also dyslexia and how to solve this problem. Well, first you have to start with a principle, and the principle is all children can learn. And part of our priority is to make sure that every child in the state of Nebraska gets a proper education, which means recognition of the problem. In my profession,
30 seconds.
thank you, recognizing the illness is the first way to adequate treatment. We need to prioritize and individualize our education. Otherwise, I might have been a Kenny shoe salesman, nothing against Kenny shoe salesman, and I would not be sitting in front of you today. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Trump. That is the end of our public comment period, so let's take a quick break. A break today. Today, we'll have breaks.
That was great. Really well done.
So the State Board of Education will reconvene from our break, and we're moving on to item 7. And 7 is our action items. Our first action item from the Teaching and Learning Domain Committee is to authorize the commissioner to enter into a contract with ACT for the college entrance exam to be administered in the spring of 2017. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay, so we have a motion and second to authorize the commissioner to enter into a contract with ACT for the college entrance exam to be administered in the spring of 2017. Any questions or comments?
I'd just like to say that I'm really, I feel very good about the fact that we're going to have a writing component in this. I think that's very important, and I applaud the commissioner and those that were responsible, Valerie and others, for making sure we had that.
Lily?
Madam President, a representative is here from the company, and so my understanding is that there will be, depending upon the vote and everything, continued access for any questions that arise over the next year.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. Brenda, please call the roll.
John Witzel,
Yes.
Rachel Wise.
Yes.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Patrick McPherson,
Yes.
Lily Larson,
Yes.
Glenn Flint,
Yes.
8 yes.
All right, moving on to item 2, which would be items under the Student Success and Access Domain Committee. Our first item, is there a motion for item A?
I move to adopt revisions to Rule 41, 92 NAC 41, regulations governing the authorization to operate private post-secondary career schools.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Brenda, please call the roll.
Glenn Flint,
Yes.
Lily Larson,
Yes.
Patrick McPherson,
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Rachel Wise.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
8 yes.
Moving on to item B. As we move on to item B, thank you very much, Glenn, for catching a correction that will be made in item B, and so that motion will is restated, I believe, in your materials, but it's to adopt revisions to Rule 42, 92 NAC 42, regulations governing private post-secondary career school agents and issuance of certificates of approval to recruit with the corrections described in the attached sheet. Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
I'd second it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? And again, thank you, Glenn, for catching that yesterday. Hearing none. Brenda, please call the roll.
Patrick McPherson,
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Rachel Wise.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Glenn Flint,
Yes.
Lily Larson.
Yes.
8 yes.
All right, moving on. Is there a motion for item C?
I move we adopt revisions to Rule 43, 92 NAC 43 regulations governing the complaint and investigation procedures for private post-secondary career schools.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Brenda, please call the roll.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Rachel Wise.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Glenn Flint,
Yes.
Lily Larson.
Yes.
Patrick McPherson.
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
8 yes.
Moving on to item D. Is there a motion, Maureen?
Yes. I move to adopt revisions to Rule 44, 92, and AC 44, regulations governing private post-secondary career schools tuition recovery cash fund.
So we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Brenda, please call the roll.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Rachel Weisz,
Yes.
John Witzel,
Yes.
Glenn Flint,
Yes.
Lily Larson,
Yes.
Patrick McPherson,
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
8 yes.
Okay, moving on to item E. Is there a motion?
Yes. I move we grant the Commissioner the authority to contact with Nicole Barron for translation services and processing independent study applications. This
Second.
has to do with early childhood education.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Brenda, please call the roll.
Rachel Weisz.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Glenn Flint,
Yes.
Lily Larson,
Yes.
Patrick McPherson,
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
8 yes.
All right, moving on to item F. Is there a motion?
I move we approve the proposed revisions to the State Board, grant the Commissioner the authority to contract with Janice Lee for training and coaching.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Brenda, please call the roll.
Glenn Flint,
Yes.
Lily Larson,
Yes.
Patrick McPherson,
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Rachel Weisz,
Yes.
John Witzel,
Yes.
8 yes.
We will now move to action that occurred through the Policy Committee, which would be under item 3.
I move to approve the proposed revisions to State Board Policy B11, board meeting notification for regular meetings.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Brenda, please call the roll.
Patrick McPherson,
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Rachel Weisz.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Glenn Flint,
Yes.
Lily Larson.
Yes.
8 yes.
We'll now move to item 4 under the Finance Committee, and there's 2 action items from the Finance Committee. Is there a motion?
I move we accept the attestation report by the Auditor of Public Accounts for the Nebraska Department of Education.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Brenda, please call the roll.
Molly O'Halloran,
Yes.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Rachel Weisz.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Glenn Flint,
Yes.
Lily Larson,
Yes.
Patrick McPherson,
Yes.
Maureen Nichols.
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you. There's another item from the Finance Committee. Is there a motion?
I move we adopt the 17 to 18 and 18 to 19 biennial budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Brenda, please call the roll.
Rachel Weisz.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Glenn Close, Glenn Flint.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
It's okay, Brenda. You're doing great, Brenda.
You know I look that good.
Okay, Glenn Flint,
Yes.
Lily Larson,
It's not Lily Tom. Yes.
Patrick McPherson,
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran,
Yes.
and Patricia Tim.
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you. And thank you, Brenda. I'm working so hard to call Brenda instead of Denise.
Yeah.
So, let's move on then to item 8, which is the approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I would move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Glenn?
I see we're going to be treated to another option enrollment case soon. I don't know if that's gonna happen in October or November, how long it takes to wind its way through, but to me, this whole system is biased against the parents. They've been working on this since July, and now they're going to have to wait several months to get a resolution of this. I feel we need to do something to expedite this process so that they don't have to wait. I mean, there's going to be several months into the school year before they get this resolved.
I'll just highlight it. There's, from our processing standpoint, that's dealing with that. I actually, in a bit of a conversation, that I think we need to also have in legislative committee, because this is not the first time, obviously, this has come forward. We did work with legislators last year of trying to come up with improved language, especially as it was relating to special ed. I think this particular case highlights another thing. Given the fact that you have to act as also a quasi-judicial body to make that, we have those rules and kind of processes that we also have to follow. But I think we all sympathize with that time frame perspective, and we're going to have to work with the legislature to be able to adjust that some more. But Glenn's been a nice advocate for this cause, so I mean, actually, I think it's important.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. Brenda, please call the roll.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Rachel Weisz.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Glenn Flint,
Yes.
Lily Larson,
Yes.
Patrick McPherson.
Yes.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
Patricia Tim.
I voted
Okay,
once.
8 yes.
Vote early, vote often.
Thank you. Moving on to item 9 is we have no special presentations to speak of today. Just one discussion point quickly though, and as we think about this change in structure, please make sure that you give suggestions to the commissioner and myself about how we are reformatting a little bit of our process on the agenda, and if you have recommendations for improvement between now and the next meeting, please give those to the commissioner or myself, so thank you. Item 10 is board reports, dates, and discussion items. We will first look for, if you looked in your meeting materials, there's some additional requests for meeting participation. I don't know if there's any other questions or comments about meeting participation. If not, we'll need a motion for meeting participation.
I'd like to be included in the state education conference, November 16, 18.
Okay?
And I'd move for approval.
Okay.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second, and we will add Pat McPherson to the November 16th conference. Discussion?
Is this the appropriate time to talk about the NASB representative?
We will do that after.
Okay.
This, because that's going to be
Pardon me.
another.
Pardon
No,
me.
that's all right. Good question. Good question.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Could you please add me to the NASB area membership meeting in Omaha?
Okay, so I think technically that would be amendment to the motion to add John.
Just make it a friendly.
Yeah, thank you.
Friendly. Let's be friendly.
Your second decrease.
Thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, so add John then
Thank you.
as well. Just a second, we're not finished yet with friendly amendments, maybe?
Could I add a friendly amendment?
How friendly are we gonna be yet today? Let's see.
How friendly are my colleagues? To attend the area NASB, NESB meetings in Kearney and York that are
Okay.
coming up.
Okay.
I
All
don't
right.
know the exact dates right offhand.
Okay, so we've got.
Maker accepts that as a friendly amendment.
Yes.
All right, so we've added those items to the list. Any other questions or discussions or amendments, friendly amendments that we need? Hearing none, Brenda, please call the roll.
Maureen Nichols,
Yes.
Molly O'Halloran.
Yes.
Patricia Tim,
Yes.
Rachel Weisz.
Yes.
John Witzel.
Yes.
Glenn Flint,
Yes.
Lily Larson,
Yes.
Patrick McPherson.
Yes.
8 yes.
And then just note that you do have a copy of the monthly board travel expense report in your items. And third, I want to carry over the discussion from yesterday, and thank you, Molly, for NASB. And we do need a delegate and an alternate for being representing Nebraska at a NASB's annual conference business meeting. Is there someone that wanted to volunteer to be the delegate, and anyone want to be the alternate?
Madam President, I'd be glad to be either.
And I'd be the alternate. Okay, so we will have Lily,
And Molly.
and as the
Unless
delegate.
someone else wants to be.
And Molly as the alternate. I think we're all good for that. And we don't need to do that as formal action. Again, it's just a decision that we make collectively or that I could make individually, and it's nice to be able to make it collectively. Any other questions or comments? We will have, we're working on just one more topic, the agenda for next month. And next month, tentatively, we're looking at the Strategic Planning Committee and the Data and Continuous Improvement Committee. Did I get that right? Data and Continuous Improvement Committee to meet Wednesday afternoon because of some of the work that we need to look at in those two areas. We're looking at the Finance Committee to start a little bit earlier on Thursday to be able to, of course, fill our Thursday. And then Thursday we'll also have about 90 minutes for policy and legislative and about 90 minutes for the two domain areas is tentatively what we've planned. We also, if you need individual tenant meetings, to look at the schedule for Wednesday or for Friday after our board meeting for those tenant meetings. Is there any other questions or comments about next month or anything we need to plan? Maureen?
Yes, you mentioned the data
Yeah.
committee would be meeting on Wednesday.
Yes.
Do you have a time frame for that?
It's probably gonna be 2 to 4 or 2:30 to 4:30 is kind of what we're looking at. So
Okay.
it'll be a little bit mid to late afternoon. For both the strategic planning and the data and continuous, they'll meet at the same time because we're all on one or the other, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, suggestions that we need? If not, again, you've got item 11, the information that's there, and we are record. Moving on to item 12, which would be adjournment. A work session will be held on Thursday, October 6th at 2 p.m., and a board meeting will be held on Friday, October 7th at 9 a.m. in this room. Please remember that we have a competency-based education study committee that will be meeting in, let's say, about 10 minutes in conference room C. And Molly has a tenant meeting for positive partnerships and student success. Trying to remember the whole title.
Conference room A.
Conference room A. Okay.
Anyone on my domain is welcome to come.
All right, so with that, thank you, everybody. And Brenda, thank you very much. Great job. So Denise is on a well-deserved vacation, and Brenda, you did a great job, so thank you.
You have a good sense of humor.